So happy to see you. So happy to be doing this.
Me too, Melsanor.
You ready to roll, baby? Love
Ready
it.
to go.
So guys, if you don't know who this is Amy Chmelecki, totally amazing human being, which is first and foremost. Also, Red Bull Air Force. I'm going to list a few of your things, and then feel free to add if you want to. Red Bull Air Force, world champion, world record organizer, a bunch of million times, skydiving coach, organizer, stunt person. Like I said, overall positive human being, positive leader in the sport of skydiving and in the world. And I'm lucky enough also to call you my beautiful friend. So I love it. Yay that we're doing this. So welcome. So today we're going to talk about, we basically had this idea, guys, about having a conversation about professional skydiving and what that is and sort of our paths to professional skydiving and like sort of shedding some light on our stories because they're quite divergent, leading to similar pursuits in that end. I get asked a lot of like, what is professional skydiving? And I think there's a distinction to be made.
Asked a lot. Know me through my Red Bull social media channels. How do I do what you do? And these people are asking me before they've even done a skydive. So to address that question is you got to start from the beginning. And the path that you take could end up looking a lot different than mine or yours, or anyone that becomes a professional skydiver. But you always got to start from the beginning, no matter what you do. So I always tell those people, they're looking at me. I have a 24-year-long career in this sport, but I started from going to a skydiving facility and doing a tandem. And that could totally change your mind. You can be like, no way, this isn't for me. Or you can just want to go full speed ahead. So you start at the very beginning, start with going out, doing a tandem. And then from there, if you want to continue getting your license, and then you might be clear within that process once you learn a little bit more about the sport. But yeah,
absolutely. And some people pursue it where they become instructors and they do tandems eventually, or they do accelerated free fall and stuff like that. And do you have those ratings?
Yeah, I have AFF rating, team rating, pro rating, co rating. So I do have all the ratings. I didn't get them till later on. Mm-hmm. I was already professional and had taken different avenues, but yeah.
Yeah. I think, well, it's because it's interesting. How do you do what you do? And it's probably when people ask you that question, they're probably asking it from the perspective of stunts and demo jumps, stuff like that, from the Red Bull perspective.
Yeah, I've been so far removed from not being a skydiver that sometimes I get confused what people are actually asking. I'm like, gosh, skydive. So I always ask them the first thing, have you done a skydive yet? And if the answer is no, then just go do a skydive. So
right.
Yeah, the sport itself, there's so many different things you can do, and it's a neat sport because you can do it. I mean, I'm 41 years old and I still have a promising career ahead of me. I don't know for how long, but it's a rare sport that you can still be professional at it into your 40s and still be charging really hard. So it's a cool sport in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, like, because when I get asked it, I tend to make the distinction of, so the way that I'm a professional skydiver is similar to Amy. I'm not on the Red Bull team, obviously. I'm not as big as Amy, but I've pursued it in the sport of skydiving and traveled, coaching experienced skydivers, how to have more fun, how to jump out of certain airplanes, how to be safe, how to navigate social situations and, overcome fear and stuff like that, which is has been the natural progression into my life coaching career now, helping people with those more emotional skills and sort of interactive skills, which is cool. But I like to distinguish that because I think, and then I have people who are young skydivers who ask me sort of about that path about how does one actually get there? Because I see a lot of people sort of being like, oh my God, like that's gotta be the best life, or that's gotta be, and in a lot of ways it is. And I also like to remove any rose-colored glasses for people by sharing the stories and stuff about how it actually comes to pass, which for me was a long, long, long time. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's instant. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you first got into skydiving, like, what were your early days like? Like, start us off. So you went and you did a tandem. Well, what can people expect then?
I first went to a skydiving facility. I was 18 years old. I was in college. I had no money. I had to work 3 jobs. Literally, I worked 3 jobs through my summer breaks in college. And I always worked jobs while I was studying to pay for everything. But the moment I went to a skydiving facility and I realized that you can be a skydiver, it was clear that I wanted to. I didn't know that before. I thought you just did one, or maybe it was something you did in the military, but I didn't understand that it was actually something you can do and could be part of your life. So at that moment, I knew I would go through the student program and managed to get through it. Again, I literally was working, I was working or at the drop zone. And that was really, really fun days. It was great getting through it. It was so fun. And then I finished college, and I only did maybe 90 jumps in my first 3 years, and most of them were recurrency jumps, which I don't I don't recommend doing that, but I did what I can. I did what I could. I mean, any college kid could relate. I mean, you're trying to steal toothpaste from your roommate when they're not looking, you're just like, I'm so poor, but managed to get through it. And then immediately after college, I moved to Skydive, Arizona, where I still live as my home base. And would immerse myself in the sport. I thought it would only be for a year, but that was 20 years ago. So
yeah, let me ask you about the moment when you realized it was a possible thing. Was that meaning like it was a possible, you could be a professional skydiver, like an instructor? Like what was that experience?
I actually, when I realized you could still think it would be my career. I didn't think it would be my career until about 4 years after I had moved to Skydive, Arizona. I just realized there was a licensing system after my first tandem. I realized you can do it every weekend. You can go out to the drop zone and do it. But I didn't think it would be my career. And I never really intended for it to be. I just postponed getting a real job so I could live at a skydiving facility after college. And I was a bartender, and I really loved it. And every year I thought, oh, I'll do it next year. I'll go get a job next year.
Yeah.
And then skydiving slowly became my career. And if I have to be honest, when I look back at that, it was like I knew that it could be my career, but I just didn't want to say, like, I wasn't saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I just thought, I'm just doing this for now because this is fun. And then it became my career.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing. One of the things we talked about is this idea of juxtaposing our two parallel stories, because I'm 40. So we have like oddly parallel timelines in terms of the sport. I've been skydiving 22 years. So I started when I was 18 years old as well. And skydiving was in my family. So I was exposed to it at a young age. I just was aware of it. I'm grateful that I knew about it. I did a static line similar to you. I didn't do 90 jumps in my first 4 years. I did like 6 in my first like 3. And then whatever, because I kind of had it in my head like, oh, it's just something that I do at my dad's house, as I'm going forward on the very classic path, go to college, and then I graduated college, but part of my skydiving story is my study abroad year. I went to Australia for my junior year. I chose it deliberately because of skydiving. Like you, I was obsessed. I'm like, how can I get this in my life while still going down the sort of more classic path? That classic path was very much my direction. And so, I mean, I did the whole like eat fucking beans out of a can, sit on the side of the road at the roundabout where Larry, my instructor, picked me up and drove me to the drop zone. Like the whole thing, you kind of make it happen. So that definitely was a part of my earlier days of like, I have to do this. Then I graduate college. I did get the regular job. So I did go the classic route. I ended up working at an investment bank for 5 years, where my story is more like I made all the money and I spent it all on skydiving. Like I didn't even think professional skydiving, it never even touched my brain that professional skydiving was a thing. And then when it did touch my brain that, oh, maybe I could like, I love skydiving so much, maybe I could do this. I was like, I dismissed the idea because I was like, no, I don't want to live in a trailer on the drop zone. I don't want to eat ramen noodles. Like I had sort of become accustomed to making money in investment banking and having my own place and like a certain lifestyle. So I just blocked that idea. And so anyway, I'm almost done with my little section here, but I found myself getting super unhappy at that job. And I was like becoming this sort of negative person. I would snap at my coworkers and I just was reflecting and I was like, even as a young person, I'm like, this is just not who I am. Like, what is up? So I bought the job book. What color is your parachute? Why? Because I'm obsessed with skydiving. That's a job search book. And a question in that book changed my life. It said, what would you do if money were no object? And I was like, well, skydiving, duh, but don't want to do this, don't want to do that, da, 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 da. And I blocked on and then I said, wait a second. There are people in skydiving that don't live in a trailer on the drop zone, that do have homes and families. And that moment opened my mind to what might be possible in a different way than I originally thought. So anyway, that's sort of my like, how did I realize it moment, but like definitely the classic job path.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if that would have been an exciting route for me to take personally. But the classic job path, I have no idea what that would even look like for me. I mean, there is like nothing. I couldn't, I didn't even know what kind of job I would go and get. So yeah, my brain.
Well, I know.
It's interesting to me that the appeal, people say, oh, I never want to live on the drop zone in a trailer, or you sacrifice so much. Because I lived on the drop zone in a trailer for 10 years. But I loved it, Melson. I loved it so much. It was for me. When at that time, I don't know what the situation is now, but at that time, it was free rent if you worked at the drop zone. So I didn't have any bills, and I was bartending. So I would make all this cash in my tips and then be able to spend all that money on skydiving. And I remember the trailer, I loved it because it was so easy to clean. It was just like one room and I would just clean it and it was mine, which was cool. It was really, I liked being outside a lot. So this confined area, it was great.
And it's funny, I have no judgment on that. It's just a very notable thing that blocked me back when I was in the face of professional skydiving and doing that or not. I very clearly had that in my way of something I, for whatever reason, didn't want at that time in my life. And again, it's like, who's to say? I could have been maybe just as happy or not. It's more to say like, you can go either way and be happy and successful in professional skydiving if you so choose.
Yeah, it's not one way or another. There's definitely different avenues you can take. I think another one that I really admire is people that maintain both their part-time professional skydiving, or maybe even a little bit more, where they come out and work on the weekends, but they also have a really fulfilling job that they totally enjoy Monday through Friday, or that. I think that's really cool too. And I think that's a good opportunity for people that aren't sure. And there's also, I think it's a great idea to consider developing a type of a plan B alongside this, like, living the dream type lifestyle. It's not a bad idea. You know, it's whatever really makes you comfortable, but certainly a good idea to kind of have
Yeah.
your eggs in different baskets.
Yeah, that's something I was thinking of while you were talking earlier, is that's something I've seen a lot, is people do go, "Oh yes, full-time skydiving, this is great." And then they don't necessarily have that foresight of preparing. Like you mentioned earlier about, like, you're not sure how long, like, and I assume that was about physical, like your physical self, like your body, when is it going to not be able to do this in such a professional way? Is that what you were talking about earlier? Like planning for when you can't literally physically jump as much or as hard as you do now.
Yeah, and that's already changed. I've had to refine my skill set as I've aged. It's definitely changed, and it will continue to change. So kind of like I'm adapting as I go along, but yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, and I love how you highlighted the balance thing, because that's basically what I do now. Is like, I feel like I describe the bell curve a lot, where I was like new skydiver, not very jumping, then like, oh fuck, growing up the bell curve, yeah, skydiving, yeah, professional, oh my god, traveling, killing it, going all over the world, every event, and then like, oh, I'm getting tired, oh, I'm burning out, oh my god, okay, wait, I'm doing something else, I'm life coaching more, okay, I'm skydiving a little less, like, so I've sort of feel like I've luckily come through my burnout after my professional skydiving section of my career and life. And I feel like now I'm doing it in a balanced way, because that is what works for me now. But I think that's partly why you are so successful inside the sport of skydiving as the personality, stunt person, professional that you are, is because you've been very focused in that one singular direction. Would you say that's true or no?
Yeah, I think so. Taking the more you put into it, I would say generally the more you're going to get out of it. And I've never taken a break and pretty much put all my energy towards skydiving related career and job. So yeah, I would assume that has to do with my success. I've never really thought about it, but yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of like Gary Vee and how intense he is. And it makes me think, I reflect on intensity and stuff like that. And as I reflect on this idea of like, well, what is it that actually gets someone to be a pro or a desired coach or something like that? Because if I'm thinking about younger experienced skydivers, or even just anyone considering like interested in this idea, is like how, because I always reflect on myself, like I'm not a world champion, like yeah, I've been on the world records and stuff like that, but like my skill level is not necessarily like out of this world. I'm good, don't get me wrong, I'm not like I'm not saying anything bad about my skill, just to say that I've reflected on why would I be hired around so much given my level of skill? And so for me, I think about it and I go, well, I think part of it is this commitment to inclusion, this commitment to positivity and love, and safety, like really leading from sort of core pillars. And so when I think of you, I'm like, I wonder, like, what would you say are the biggest reasons you've earned your spot as you, if that makes sense?
I think that a bit, for sure, I can't deny that there's been a luck factor involved, which I think that has to do with everyone's path.
Sure.
And what I did with that good fortune. I met some of the right people early on in my career, and they are the people that I'm on the team with now. So I met John DeVore and Charles Bryan. These guys are the OGs of the Red Bull Air Force. When I was, when I was 19, I worked manifest at Skydiving Lake Tahoe. Now, all the reasons why I was there had to do with my choices and ability I lived in a tent at Skydiving Lake Tahoe, and it was honestly, it wasn't a sacrifice for me. I loved that. I loved it. It was like, what? I get to like live in a tent and work at Manifest with all these cool people. Cool. It was great. So I met them early on, and then they got to see me grow in my career. And then, I was, excuse me, not 19. I was not 19, I was 21 at that time. And yeah, they saw me grow in my career, and there never was a big like vision for me. I just every day went to the drop zone and jumped, and it's just what I wanted to do and what was fun for me. And I love competition. I've always loved competition, even before I was a skydiver. So was brought me so much joy, so I did it. And I've definitely won medals before, but I can't say I've ever been the best at all. When you win a medal in skydiving, anyone that's competed knows this. It could just not have been a very competitive year, or it could have, whatever. Like there's all the medal, honestly, I don't think reflects who you are as a skydiver, but they definitely look good on a resume. So, sure. So get out there and compete. But I think that's definitely part of it. But I worked, okay, I'm going to say work, but it was never seemed like work to me. But I put in the time. I trained super hard for everything I've ever done. And I'm still doing it. Sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to the tunnel training 10 hours a week. I'm like Ben Gay, and I can throw in, okay. I'm still training super hard. The young kids are definitely beating me, and that's okay. But I'm still like at the grind, and I'm doing it. And I really love it.
Yeah.
So that has to do with it. So I would say there's luck, there's resume, and then personality. When a company brands you or decides to invest in you, whether it's a big company like Red Bull or a skydiving related company, yeah, the resume is important, but at the end of the day, someone is selling a product and they want someone that's going to be a good representative of their company. So being friendly to people, being approachable, being representing that company in a respectful manner is super important. And that's always been something I've always wanted to be as nice as possible to people, just because it always felt like the right thing to do. And so that's always been easy for me. I never had to really fake something like that.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Sometimes for sure, if I'm sick and I have to go to work and I'm like trying not to like, I have like a head cold, I'll have to like I'll have to push to be charismatic and kind, especially now that I'm a little bit more famous. I know it could be sensitive to people if I'm kind of more stuck in my own head. And
Yeah.
I have to, yeah, it's weird sometimes. I if I'm just like in here, or maybe even I'm feeling shy a little bit,
Yeah.
which is, it's hard for people to imagine that, but yeah, it'll happen. Like I feel weird or sick or something. So I kind of try and push through that. So I know people around me are going to be comfortable, but
yeah, definitely. That's a big deal. The whole emotional wake, like, because there's a humility obviously that you carry. And so like, and that's a huge deal. Like I remember thinking never that, like, it shocked me that I would have emotional impact on others in the way that I did. And this is a funny sort of story with my now best friend still to this day, but like basically in very short, totally thought I was stuck up the first time she met me. And I was just like excited about a brand new sponsorship that I had gotten, which was a total milestone in my career. Like, but I think about it and it still like kills my heart that I could have hurt her ever. You know what I mean? So that experience very much connected me to that idea of that, oh, as you grow in leadership, there is like you can take it on as a responsibility in a positive sense of like, oh, I have positive power here to elicit a positive and loving emotional wake if I put the effort into being so. So like that moment and that story really drove me in a positive sense to care about that emotional wake, even on those days when I feel tired and sick and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think about Craig Girard. He's probably the best at it. It's amazing how charismatic, and he remembers anyone that knows Craig. He's going to know your name. He'll know your name before he even knows you. And it's a really amazing, and he'll remember you 15 years later. And it's a fantastic, yeah, I don't know how he does it, but it just being kind to people as best you can.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that the most when I feel like safety is being violated. And it's actually something I really admire in you, because I've seen you talk someone down from a really unsafe situation in the most positive way, where I got to learn how to do this, Mel, because you're so good at it. I get really, yeah, when I'm, it happens to me like a couple, at least one time during events, or sometimes a few times, where I don't know how to convince someone that that's not a good idea. And then sometimes I go, you know what? I'm not jumping with you. I don't care. I'm sorry. Like, I need to focus on something else now.
And you know what? There's no shame in that response either, truly, because like, if you don't know what to say, you've tried and to the level at which you know how to communicate your concern for the person or whatever, it's maybe the experience that person needs is to have Amy Chmelecki kind of get in his face, you know, and I'm not suggesting that's an ideal way to engage anybody, but like, I tend to believe that it's all of value. And so you can always go back and have a more positively charged communication with that person that you kind of lost it with. And so it's still like positive and good, but like, who knows what that person might remember about that experience, you know? I don't know. I just always try to keep it in the positive frame. Thank you for saying that, by the way.
Yeah.
Very generous of you.
But sometimes I just go right to tough love because I don't know what else to do. So if you ever get that from me,
we can have another sesh on that alone. We'll talk when you're about to lose it, how not to, what to say, this scenario, that scenario. Yeah. But going back to the professional skydiving path, just since that's what we're illuminating today for people, and how you said it was a long road of you working hard, training, jumping. Like mine very much aligns with yours. Like once I started working at Skydive Elsinore, I had another job there, basically running their event. So I was getting a salary also. So I was jumping for free, getting a salary, but very much supported to, you know, jump. And I took as much advantage of that in a positive sense, because I was barely conscious of it. I was just so fucking happy to be there and to be doing it. And like that very pure energy and pure love, I think very much underpinned my growth as a professional. And the commitment to doing the hard work of like showing up every day to train. Like a lot of people I think don't even know this about me, but my first half of the career is four-way belly flying. So a lot of people know me as a free fly load organizer, traveling and going to events. When I always laugh, I'm like, I'm so much better belly flying. Like, I don't get it. But yeah, I just want to echo that shows up in my story too, is that days and days and weeks and years on end of showing up and training and being committed, even when it's hot out, even when it's cold out, even when you're fighting with your teammates, even when you feel not so great, even when whatever. Like it's just a cool, I feel like that joy piece is a big one that motivates people.
The another thing that I did that I don't think we've talked about this too much yet, but it's a really, really important part of my path. And this might not be the path that everyone else wants to take, but when I started, it was all about getting pictures in the magazines, because
Right.
there was no Facebook, there was no social media. So I would figure out creative ways to get in the magazine, I remember thinking, okay, they're more likely going to put a picture if I write a little article with it. So I'm kind of like, get creative and make sure I always had some kind of presence in
Yep.
there. And that was just pure self promotion, and it was always fun. And then even like I would do little events and kind of create stories and get those pictures in there, and like hot hire photographers. I mean, we were all friends. Everybody was such good friends that people would, just kind of go up and take pictures, and they want to see their pictures in the magazine too. So it kind of was a really important part of, sponsors loved that. It would be like a free ad when they see me on the photo finish a parachutist with their rig displayed.
Exactly.
And now, obviously, social media, in a way, it's become a lot harder, but it's also in a way become easier because everyone has GoPros and you can just screenshot something. But that still is a big part. You have to, someone's investing in you, and if the benefit, so for me, the benefit they get is the social media and that stuff. So I have to make sure that I'm promoting it, and it's fun for me as well, because I love, I know people enjoy that. They like looking at the pictures, so they like reading the stories, so that's all really fun. And of course it's to give my sponsors something in return for what they're investing in me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting. I think about that. Like, I've always had trouble. It might not seem like it now with the self promoting piece, which I think is hilarious now that I have a personal brand and everything. But like, I've grown into that and leaned into that and embraced that as an avenue for me to be a positive leader in the sport and the world. So like but it's been challenging for me I continually have to sort of acknowledge that that's a positive thing. So for me, like what I would say too is to support people is sometimes it does help to align with a drop zone, and to feel like you're aligned with a place where it can be sort of a commingled thing where you're not just feeling like you have to just be, quote unquote, shameless self-promotion, although that's really excellent when you're doing good things and leading in positive ways. So for me, being aligned with Skydive Elsinore and working there, I never really thought of myself as anything like you calling me Elsinore. That was like still comedy to me, but like that nickname came to me. I didn't like ever think about that or cultivate that, which is, it's an interesting thing because I'm not promoting lack of mindfulness. I'm just acknowledging that I really wasn't mindful of that at the beginning, and I only became mindful of it as I realized what was then possible leaving Skydive Elsinore to then do the professional skydiving, like free agent professional athlete thing, where I would go to events and travel. And when obviously you and I got to do a lot of work together on the road, but like I didn't really even think of that until I was doing very well in conjunction with my work with Skydive Elsinore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be a way for people who maybe feel like, oh, I'm an imposter, like the imposter syndrome stuff. And it's like, you have to pay your dues for sure. And so like sometimes aligning with, sponsors and places where you can be of mutual value is a really good idea.
Yeah, because if you're looking for the sponsors, it doesn't just, there's other reasons why a sponsor might want to brand you. It could be your accessibility to new skydivers or who are going to be buying the gear, or, you know, some kind of other, maybe you're somehow associated with the military. There's different avenues that you can take, and different ways, like you helping Elsinore out and them helping you out. It was just such a great relationship, and you guys once you guys teamed up, it was amazing. Those were such great days in Elsinore. Yeah, that was fun.
Me making you show up at 8 o'clock in the rain. Taskmaster. Terrible.
I don't even remember what you're
You
talking
told me
about.
this the other day. It was a while ago now, but I was laughing about that. Like how back in the day running the events there, I would like really want everyone showing up on time. Like people should be there. And then sort of loosening a little bit of my control.
It doesn't surprise me that I would have struggled with mornings. I still do. I always do.
Oh yeah, but I love it too. Like you as now this sort of social media big brand of yourself, and connected to a big brand and with Red Bull and stuff like that, and just all the amazing shit that you do. I still like anytime I think about you guys jumping into New York City, it's so unbelievably amazing to me. It's like the coolest thing I think I've ever seen in the sport, only because I love New York so much. But oh, I love that. And then me working with new skydivers, like doing my group with young jumpers that they can join, and then I lead that group online for people that I can't reach because I don't want to travel anymore. You know, like there are loads of ways to add value and continue your reach and be of service to your sponsors, to other people, to the sport, and to decide your avenue as a professional as you go and grow.
Yeah, I feel really lucky. It seems like the opportunities that I've had throughout the years to be able to harness a life like this, it's been really amazing. It does seem like in this country, and I've never lived in other countries, so I don't know, but it does seem like you can get creative and do what you want. Like I met this guy a couple days ago that was that bred snakes. He bred pythons, and he just kind of like fell in, and he makes such an amazing living. I just thought that's so cool. It's just like,
It's so random and cool. It
yeah.
is true. I believe that to be true big time. Big time. There's so much availability for creativity. If that's something that sticks out, when I reflect on the long-term path, like there's no freaking way. I had no concept of this type of lifestyle being possible. No concept at all. You know, like, and it certainly does, like, as we've said, like begs the question of, you can't jump into New York City, you know, like I jumped into Dodger Stadium once in a bathing suit. I always joke about that one. You know, jumped into downtown San Francisco, and like the Mexico jump that you and I did into that tiny area. That was an amazing, beautiful jump with all those school kids. Like, how could we possibly think that stuff up? You know what I mean? So I love that in terms of be intentional, have your goals, and be genuinely open to what could show itself as you go. It's hard to do that, I think, but it's just so ubiquitous along my story that like I just couldn't have thought up all this awesome stuff. And the hard work is what made it continually possible and able to grow and actually become a life and career.
There were two times in my career where I kind of had to take a scary step and maybe like call it a leap of faith. The first time was I had been bartending for at the Bent Prop. 5 nights a week I was bartending there, and during that time, sponsors were picking me up. I got on some teams. I was I was getting hired to coach people and different jobs were coming up. So still the bulk of my money was coming from bartending. So I would, at that period, there was about a year where I was bartending and working until 2, 3 in the morning, and then going home and having to get up at 8 and go skydive. And my body started to shut down. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
And I thought, God, I have to quit bartending. But nothing about what I was doing was consistent besides bartending. So, but I knew I had to, in order to make more progress and perform better at my day job, which was developing into skydiving. So I quit the bar, and it was scary because I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull it off just from skydiving, but it instantly was okay. And once I wasn't so tired from closing the bar at 2 a.m., working 3 a.m., and I've been able to get a good night's sleep, then I just had more energy and I could exercise more, and I was able to perform better. And my career really benefited from taking that step.
Yeah.
And I faced a similar decision later on. I had started doing events and marketing for Skydive Arizona, and I was doing that for about 5 years, and it was a nice, consistent paycheck, and it tied in with everything else I was doing because I was I was sponsored by Skydive Arizona. I was working closely with them, so everything was kind of working. But Red Bull had started hiring me part-time, so I was doing a few gigs here and there, but I couldn't comfortably say yes to everything because I had so many obligations with my job with Skydiving Arizona. So even though that was consistent and a for sure thing, I thought this is really the path I want to I want to work for Red Bull. So I had to just kind of take that leap of faith and quit that consistent, every week I was getting a paycheck from Skydiving Arizona, and just leave my schedule open so I could say yes to everything Red Bull.
Yeah. It's so
out.
I acknowledge you for that courage. I feel like that is a very common thing that shows up in everyone's story who kind of follows their dream, as it were, not to use the super cliche phrase, but for real, like if to really like go forward toward where our heart calls us. Like I definitely had that when I was leaving Skydive Elsinore. I was like, wow, I have the best job in skydiving. I get paid to jump with my friends, do amazing events, compete, train, all of it. And I just sort of was ready and believed that there was something more that I wanted to experience and learn and grow into. And whether that, like, I wasn't super clear on what it would look like, but I was starting to get like all these invitations to do events and stuff. And I, like you, was like, oh, I have this event here, and oh, are they gonna say yes or no for me to be able to go? I really want to go and do this. And yeah, it's a gutsy ass move. And I'll tell you, I again, with the lack of sort of mindfulness, I think there's a piece of like sort of entrepreneurship or like being sort of on out in the world, like of your own accord, that it's almost a thing where you like, thank God you weren't totally aware, because maybe that would be too scary, but I remember being months, like kind of a handful of months, maybe 6 months into like not working for Skydive Elsinore anymore, having jobs on the calendar, but having the realization of like, oh shit, I'm like legit out there on the edge of the branch. I'm on the tip of the branch. Like it's all me. Like I there's nothing. And it was this sort of scary and uber exciting realization, even though I was just sitting in my desk chair at my office in my house, but I just acknowledge that courage, acknowledge it big time.
Yeah. I think in some cases it might not be difficult But in other cases, it really could be a, a scary decision that you just gotta, decide. Everyone has to decide for themselves, what
Great.
kind of chances they want to take. And, just because it worked for me and what worked for you, it's going to be different for each individual.
Agreed. Yeah,
Yeah.
and everyone's core values are different, like people, how much they prioritize. Like for me, at the beginning, I did the job. I wanted that. I had that experience. I went that road. That was sort of my core values at the time. And yeah, so it's like, and you said, I'm not going to do the job thing. So like you have those experiences, I have my experiences. And I do think it really depends. I used to totally advise keeping your job. Like, I did. I used to be like, and maybe that's a wise road, maybe not. It just so depends situationally on each person, I think, for sure. I'm looking at my sort of list of questions where I'm like, what would be us holistically covering this topic? I feel like it's tough because it's so broad and complex in itself. You've said about how and why you're successful. Like, what else is there? Like, what else do you think is important for people to know, or what's a part of your story that is significant enough that would be of value to people considering this as a path for themselves?
Well, I think, and I know that you would agree with this, at least in ways, that everything has to be done in its proper time. When things try to be rushed, whether it's something as simple as a relationship with another person or a relationship with a potential sponsor, when that tries to be rushed in an unnatural manner, it becomes really awkward and it doesn't work. when you try and rush through a process, whether it's getting to a certain skill level faster than what's going to be most natural for you. I mean, those are dangerous zones to be in skydiving, and they're awkward when it comes to interpersonal relationships. And there's a certain time frame that things are going to have to take. So I think if you can just enjoy each step that you take without being completely married to a certain outcome, the quality of your day-to-day life is going to be so much better. And that's going to spiral into really good things. It might end up taking you in a totally different direction. It might, keep you on this vision you have. Who really knows? But things have to be taken in a very natural, the path has to happen naturally.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. And I think I love that you said that, because I not only think it's essential, I think it actually magnifies the timeline when we are detached from the timeline. Ironically, this is something that makes me think of every time I think about detachment from outcome. I think about the women's vertical world record and coaching the girls on the record, who were very, like, really needing to be on the record, and how the ironic thing, and this I think is very much when we think about and we become attached to this idea of, I want to be a pro in the sport, or I want anything like that, external attachment. Totally, the irony is that only when we detach do we actually expedite and most likely end up with that outcome that we want. Agreed.
Yeah, because the moment you shut down, the moment it becomes stressful and you shut down mentally, or it's going to get more difficult for you. There's this, I see a lot of skydivers go through this awkward phase where now they've become pretty good, but they're not known as good, or sponsors haven't completely, so there's this awkward where they're constantly trying to prove themselves, and I see it a lot, and I totally understand it, and I recognize it for what it is, but it's an awkward phase. It's a really awkward phase. And I think,
I
and
know.
yes, I
My
feel,
heart.
I know, and I see people going through that, and they're just constantly like wearing their resume on their, and it's real, it's awkward. It's so, and
Yeah.
you kind of come across as a douchebag, and it's
Yep.
a it's a difficult time. But I totally get it, and you might see people going through that and like it, but just like trying to relax and enjoy the process, because the day to
Yeah.
day really where the milk and honey is, like getting up and getting to do what you get to do, getting to skydive, getting to meet these cool people, like all of that stuff. To me, potatoes. It's the meat and potatoes. It's the good stuff. And right, I mean,
Yes.
and the outcome is great, but I still can't tell you what it is. What is the end game? I don't even.
Well, and it's different for everybody. Like I used to, and this is the thing, what I think you're pointing to and what I think is awesome is that skydiving is a very social sport. And there's a huge aspect of our sport and being a pro in the sport of skydiving that is community based. And so if you're that person acting in ways that are, repelling type of behaviors and mindsets, that is just going to repel people, period. It's going to repel sponsors. It's going to repel kind of all of the things that you're wanting sort of to make happen. This idea of like really imagining for yourself and thinking very intentionally about who is it that you like and want to be in the sport, in life. Like what is the stuff that you really believe is sort of that magnetic nature, like that is a big deal. Who do you want to spend your time around? And then start being those people. Like I think about back in the day when there was this major divide between free flying and belly flying, where like they just didn't commingle. It was like free flyers were cool, belly flyers were uncool, period. And like there was just like this, it was, you started back in the day, that was very much the vibe that was present in the sport in my experience. And so if we talk about like what's the end game, I think to myself, because I first started out like competitor like you and being like, yeah, I want to be a world champion. Fuck yeah, like that's my goal. I'll do anything, whatever it takes, right? I feel like every young competitor sort of feels that maybe at some point. But it showed itself to me over time that really my goal was to have a level of skill that allowed me to be on the jumps that I wanted to be on with my friends, that I cared so much more about connection and community and care, that was what I ended up becoming, and so the people that want to be around that magnetize to me as a leader. And so that's the kind of professional skydiver I am. That's it. You are of the kind of professional skydiver that you are because of what you believe in and stand for as well. So I think that's a big piece that people need to really think about and start doing and living now.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, my darling, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure you deliver to the audience?
So there is this book that I read when I first started, and it's a bit outdated, but it really helped me understand a lot of the concepts that you and I are talking about. It was Ada gave it to me, Ada from Chicago. It was called The Athlete's Guide to Sponsorship. And
Cool.
when she gave it to me, I thought, they're not going to be able to understand skydiving. Like, this is going to be like baseball or football or whatever. But it talked about all sports, whether it's like a sport that's kind of under the table, a little bit like an extreme sport that most people don't even know is a sport, and really, really popular sports. And it helped me understand a lot of the concepts that we've been talking about. And it also helped me understand that there were different outlets I could take and kind of help me give me ideas. The book now this was before social media, so the book doesn't talk about principles like that, but
right.
it was such a great book that helped me understand that the relationship between myself and people that are going to invest in me as an athlete. Like it helped me understand what that looks like, and that it's a working relationship, not just people want to give me things.
Yeah.
That's so obvious to me
The
now.
win-win. Yeah. Like, how are you going to add value to them as well? Yeah, for sure. Cool. What's it called again?
It's called The Athlete's Guide to Sponsorship.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, anything else?
Probably a
There's
million.
so much more. I know. We could go on and on and on, but Amy, tell everyone where they can connect with you, like what you're up to next that you want people to follow, or make sure they see of yours, like share all of your ways that they can connect.
So the best, I think that I'm most active now on Instagram. So I'm posting regularly, daily on Instagram where I'm going. And my summer's exciting. I have a handful of things. My next event is go to Alaska for a demo. So I'm going to be up there on vacation for my little sister. But it's a jam-packed summer, and follow on Instagram. Come jump with me.
Yes, always, for sure. And I'll post all of the info, and I love you. That's
Love
it.
you too, Mel. Thank you.